am Gary Parrish. Welcome back. CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you watch it on YouTube, be Brandon Davies. Smash that like button. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, please do that wherever you subscribe to podcasts like Apple, Spotify. Let's get into it. I want to start right at the top by acknowledging it was a terrible weekend to be a building truster. Inherently, I'm a building truster. We've been over this, but this weekend, two of the most trustworthy buildings in the Big Ten, if not the entire country, man, you couldn't trust them no further than you could see them. Final score, Iowa State 81, Purdue 58 inside Mackey Arena. Final score, Duke 66, Michigan State 60 inside the Breslin Center. I repeat, it was a bad weekend to be a building truster. Norlander, you wrote about the Blue Devils' perfect 10-0 record, and I thought made a fine point that while highlighting that, John Shire lost all 5 starters from last season's team, but has already established this team, brand new team in many ways, to elite status over the first 5 weeks of this season. So let's talk Duke, Michigan State first, then we'll get to Iowa State, Purdue. Like you noted, if you think what John Shire is doing is easy just because he has all of the resources in the Duke brand, look no further than Kentucky this season or North Carolina last season. Those are also big brands with lots of resources. Those teams did not do so well. This isn't as simple as the 38-year-old Duke coach is making it look, is it?
No, he actually makes it look very easy. And on a weekend with just, as expected, a buffet of results that we will get to over the next however long this podcast takes. Hopefully not too long, but obviously there's a ton to get to. Duke ascending to where it has ascended to, I think, is worth noting, because it would be all too reasonable for Duke to have reached this point. We're now 5 full weeks into the season, and if it had gotten taken out on Saturday or at some point before, if it had 1 or 2 losses, no one would have faulted Shire. This was not the preseason 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 team in America, as a reminder. And yet here is Duke. I am not yet ready, although if they can win again in a couple of weeks against Texas Tech, maybe I will be ready then. I'm not yet ready to say that this team is can be as great as last season's team was, because last season's team with 5 NBA picks and the National Player of the Year and Cooper Flagg with one of the 3 or 4 best one-and-done seasons we've ever seen, from a KenPom and metric standpoint, that was really one of the 3 best teams we've seen over the past 25 years in college hoops, albeit it didn't win the national championship. But when you take in the entire season's worth of data, its efficiency was outrageous. Somehow this team has now at least approached the table, if not yet sitting down on it. As it pertains to the specific game on Saturday, what I found most impressive was, if you listen to the Friday show, you'll know that I had to go and bring my little guy to his first rec basketball game of the season. So as I'm trying to go back and forth between both games, quick aside, YouTube TV, can we get it together, please? I need to be able to multi-view Iowa State, Purdue, and Duke, Michigan State. So I was flipping back and forth as this thing was going on. Not ideal. But as the first half was playing out, Boozer was shut out. I was like, okay, he had 2 points, 5 or 6 boards. Okay, maybe Michigan State's found something here. It wasn't that whatsoever. Boozer found his way. He finished with 18, 15, and 5. 18, 15, and 5. Had the majority of his points in the second half. Had 8 or 9 snags in the second half as well. His 5th assist was the most important one, because he gets the ball in the paint. The double team, as expected, just swarms. And then bada boom, Caleb Foster flares. There's no one on him. And then after Isaiah Evans hits the big 3 to get the Duke win over Florida, 4 days later, it's Caleb Foster that gets the big 3 to hit to basically clinch the game on the road for Duke, and playing in a style that I think Michigan State, for the most part, was playing the way that it wanted to play, in terms of win in the 60s, make it grueling. That fan base that was, as you would expect Breslin to be for a top 10 matchup. It was everything we wanted it to be, but Duke finds a way to escape with the win. They have now won for the first time in program history. Duke has defeated 3 consecutive non-conference ranked opponents in 3 successive games. That had never happened in the non-league portion until when it transpired on Saturday. They had done it once previously in ACC play back in the 2010s, I believe. yeah, it's been really, really impressive on Duke's end there. I thought Fears, who had 13 assists, not hitting a bucket from the field, also played a part. They need a little bit more on him. MSU did. Cohen Carr didn't really step up. Carson Cooper had a good game. Jackson Kohler had himself a nice night. But when it got down to it in those final few minutes, it was Duke that, made the plays, found a way to win. And as I wrote in the column near the end, I don't know if they've truly learned how to full on win games. They are adapting immediately in terms of how not to lose them. And that's an impressive deal. And we'll see if this can keep up, because the one thing last year's team didn't have that this one might have is a closer's mentality. You'll recall a number of times the game was in, Cooper Flagg's hands, and for a variety of different reasons, very few losses for Duke last season. But when they did lose, they tried to set up something for Flagg, and then that went awry. That has not played out yet with Duke so far this season. Really, really impressive stuff in Breslin on Saturday afternoon.
To me, that's among the most impressive things that they've done last season. If I remember correctly, it became like a talking point. Like Cooper kept dribbling it off his foot or just bouncing it into people. He was just turning it over, in a way that was squandering, late game possessions. Duke has been in a handful of games where it's like we're at the under 4 and this could go either way, including Saturday. And they take control every time. They make the big plays every time. And it's not the same person every time. It can be Cameron Boozer, but it can also be Isaiah Evans, and it can also be Caleb Foster. So they were terrific. I agree with you. Like if I'm Tom Izzo, you tell me I can keep it in the 60s and have a shot to win. Let's go. Let's pick it up there and play it and see how we can close it out. But when your star point guard is going to go 0 of 10 from the field, that's going to be hard to overcome. He's now got 2 games like that this season against high major competition. 0 of 7 Fears against Arkansas, then 0 of 10 against Duke. Your fear for that's not intentional. If you get into the bracket, in a single elimination tournament and he delivers one of those, then that's how a promising season could, get cut short pretty abruptly. To Boozer, you mentioned 18 points, 15 rebounds, stuff coming in the second half. Circling back to the anonymous quote from the NBA executive where it said, hey, listen, Cameron Boozer, he just dominates lesser competition. That's all he's doing is dominating lesser competition. I was thinking about it this weekend. I had a lot of travel stuff. So I had a lot of time to just think. What if everybody is lesser competition?
Yeah,
have we thought about that?
Very well might be. Yeah,
maybe he does dominate lesser competition, but what if every single person he plays is lesser competition? And the executive also reportedly said every time he's played against, quote, like-sized bigs, he can't finish. On Saturday, keep in mind, after earlier, just let's keep it simple. On Saturday, Carson Cooper, 6'11", 245. Jackson Kohler, 6'9", 245. Those are like-sized bigs. And Cameron Boozer, again, 18 points, 15 rebounds. He, once again, looked like the best college basketball player in the country.
Yeah, no, his ability to adjust in game. That third foul that Boozer got was a stupid foul. His stupidest foul yet in a college uniform. He knew it immediately. He reached in on Kohler, didn't need to. Got the slappy slap, and he had foul number 3 within, I want to say, the first 3 minutes of the second half. And then for him to turn it on was really, really impressive. And it wasn't all him. He's still going to be by far the biggest statistical contributor, but impressive stuff there. Michigan State, unfortunately, Izzo can't get past Duke. He is 3-15 lifetime now. There's only one team ever that has played at least 3 games at Michigan State in men's basketball and won all 3 and not taken a loss. It's Duke as a function of this win here. But Michigan State's still a quality team. Still has a case to be top 10 overall, but Duke gets it done. Mighty impressive start there with the Blue Devils. You got anything else on them, or you want to pivot to the other game?
One last thing I noticed as I'm, going through resumes, which I know you did as well, as it relates to Duke. As of this morning, there are exactly 2 teams with 4 quadrant 1 wins. 4 leads the country. Only 2 teams have them. It is the 2 teams that played inside the Breslin Center on Saturday. Duke has 4. Michigan State has 4, which means Duke is the only undefeated team in the country with 4 quadrant 1 wins. Let's get to Iowa State and Purdue because that was bananas. 81-58 at Mackey. Obviously, Purdue will not remain number 1 in the country when the AP poll updates on Monday. But as of this moment, Purdue is number one. When that game was played, Purdue was number one. And what that means is that Purdue made history on Saturday, because literally no number one ranked team in the history of the Associated Press Top 25 poll has ever lost a game at home by more points than the number of points Purdue lost to Iowa State to at home on Saturday. There is another match. UConn was ranked number one. I believe it was 1995. Villanova went to UConn, won by 23. Special shouts to my friend and colleague Steve Lapis. He was the architect of that. But like I said on CBS Sports Network Saturday when I was in studio, you don't ever expect Purdue to lose at Mackey, period. But to watch that happen, I mean, they just pulled away and stayed away. And that was the most impressive victory we've seen anybody record this season. And I think it's possible you and I could be talking on Selection Sunday, and that will still be the most impressive win anybody has all season. In fact, not only do I think it's possible, it's obviously possible, I think it's likely.
I mean, we'll see if someone can win at Cameron or someone can win at Michigan's home floor.
Anybody win at those places by 23.
That's true. That's true. We'll see. But yeah, it's potential. Or is Purdue going to be a 1 or 2 seed, or is it going to be a 5 seed? And then we'll see. But there's definitely a chance that it remains the most impressive statistically, by the way, in addition to what we actually saw play out there by the end of the season. I'm sending it right back over to you. Result more about Iowa State or Purdue to you?
Iowa State. I mean, Purdue's going to be fine. Like, that was a stinker from Fletcher Lawyer, from Trey Kaufman-Wren. Like, Matt's going to go back and watch that, and it's going to drive him crazy. But that core and that coach and that program have too much built up for me or anybody else with a brain to be too skeptical of them right now. That was an awful performance. I don't think they'll have another one of those. It really doesn't make me think that differently about them. It makes me adjust where they are in the top 25 and 1, because results are results. But do I think much differently about Purdue today than I did 2 days ago? No, not really.
I think it's more about Iowa State than Purdue as well. Let's give the Cyclones some real love here. As we talk here on Sunday, Iowa State is number 2 at KenPom. That is a program record. It had never been higher than 4th at KenPom, and that happened earlier this calendar year. It was last season in January. I fact-checked that with Mr. Pomeroy himself, who did me a solid as he was walking his dog on Saturday. Thank you, Ken, for that. Iowa State is also the only school ever, and I mean ever, to have multiple wins over the number 1 team by at least 20 points. They did this to Houston in the Big 12 tournament in the not-so-distant past as well. Good on you, Cyclones. You snapped a 36-game non-conference home winning streak for Purdue. It was the longest in that program's history. That's now out the window. This was the first time that Iowa State, period, had ever won a road game against a number 1 team. And boy, did you make it memorable, because that was done in emphatic fashion. Right now, Iowa State, as we head into Monday, Iowa State in the country, the entire sport, point differential per game is 30.0 flat. That is best in all of college basketball. Field goal percentage, best in all of college basketball, shooting 54.9% from the field. Number 1 in turning you over. 26.5% of the time when an opponent brings the ball up the floor, they're giving it away to Iowa State. That's more than a quarter of the possessions. Again, that is best in the country. Number 3 in field goal percentage offense is Iowa State. 43.8% from beyond the arc, and it is top 10 in points per game, just a tick under 95 points per game. I told you to watch out for the turnovers in this one we left on Friday. That wound up being a big part there. Iowa State was averaging 27 and change off of turnovers. They only got 17, but they forced Purdue into 15 turnovers in this game. That was 5.5 more than Purdue was averaging. Iowa State also got 34 paint points. They're one of the best teams in the interior in the country, and they held Purdue to 30 points under its season average and 22% below what it had been shooting from three-point range in this game. It was mighty, mighty impressive. I think the fact that Iowa State, by function of having essentially 70% of its roster be either juniors, seniors, or grad students. Now, Purdue is also plenty old on its own as well, but I think in that building, on that stage, in a big moment. Iowa State's the most experienced and collective team that came back in the Big 12. I think that really showed up and was a significant reason why this team is a national title contender. You could have made that claim before this. Now it is irrefutable after this. Big ups to TJ Otzelberger. This is the kind of win where, outside of just us talking on a College Hoops pod about this one really should be the win, in addition to everything that we've seen him do since he got the job. And they had a very high-profile season last season. He gets them to the tournament with regularity with really good seeds, GP. This kind of win, when you are smoking Purdue, teams are not supposed to do that in Mackey. They went in and did it. It elevates Otzelberger's status as a coach in the sport. It elevates Iowa State as a program just in general and puts them into that upper echelon tier. I think you can make a case right now if you wanted to tier out the sport. We can get to this in just a little bit. Whether you want to make that 4, 5, 6 teams deep, however it is, Iowa State's in that tier. And resume versus overall, how good is the team, might be two slightly different things. But after all I've seen with Iowa State, and I saw them in person in Las Vegas, the lowest I will let you sell me on Iowa State as a team. Team quality is 3 in the country, and frankly, you can make a very good case at 2 right now after they go in and get the best one of the season. And I just read off to you all the statistical stuff they're doing. It's not just 1 or 2 things. They are either the very best or top 3 in like 5 or 6 categories on both ends of the floor. Awesome, elite team. Lipsy obviously came back. He didn't even need to have a huge game. Momcilovic is shooting... GP, he's 53.6% from three-point range this season. He's averaging 18 and change. He had 20 on Saturday. All around, incredible stuff. Iowa State has a very good chance to be the best team in the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, I would just double down on a lot of the points you made. The experience matters. I mean, this is year 4 for Tamin Lipsy, and not just year 4 as a college basketball player, year 4 at Iowa State. Right. So there's a lot of teams that have like seniors and 5th-year guys and older guys, but like they just got to their campus. Tamin Lipsy, this is year 4 at Iowa State. Milan Momcilovic, this is year 3 at Iowa State. Joshua Jefferson, this is year 2 at Iowa State. All 3 of those guys started last season. So they have real roster continuity from a team that was good and a program that has been consistently good. I guess it gets overlooked because Iowa State's not Kentucky or Kansas, because, you know, they're not loaded up with projected lottery picks or one and done guys. But TJ has completed 4 years at Iowa State. He's made the NCAA tournament every season. He's never been in danger of really missing it. He's gone to 2 Sweet 16s, and he has really figured out a balance of keeping the players that matter to you and then supplementing things throughout the transfer portal. So they bring back Lipsy, Momcilovic, Jefferson. Okay, 3 starters. Now what do we do? Let's go get Blake Buchanan out of Virginia. Boom. Yep. Yes, right. And he had like 2 monster dunks, you know, on Saturday that, like, you know, I think he finished.
Yeah. In addition to that, I want to say Buchanan, either 3 or 4 of his baskets came in moments where if Purdue thought it was going to have a window to maybe start cracking back into it, he made sure that wasn't going to happen.
Right. So I think he had like, I don't know, 12 points, 9 rebounds. He was solid. Then you go get an international prospect. That's your starting lineup. And now you're 9-0. You've got wins over 2 teams that were ranked in the top 5 in the preseason. I know St. John's has fallen out of that, but Purdue and St. John's were both top 5 preseason AP poll. Iowa State has now beaten both of them. And I think that experience, like, Mackey's amazing, and that could get to anybody, and it often does. But these guys, Lipsy, Momcilovic, Jefferson, TJ, they've played and coached in Allen Fieldhouse. You know, they've seen what it looks like. They know what it sounds like, and they're equipped to handle it. And I don't want to be hyperbolic or get caught up in the moment, and I don't mean this exactly the way I'm going to say it, but in some ways, I think what happened Saturday was as big as a Sweet 16 appearance. In many ways, it's like a program-changing thing in this way. Remember last season, it's like we all knew the SEC was good, and we're talking about the SEC is good, but then it got to the SEC ACC challenge, and they just blitzed them, and it was like, oh, buddy, what are we watching here? And you had to like take a closer look, and then you take that closer look, and you're like, hey, this might be the best conference we've ever seen. And then in many ways, it proved to be. You can go to Sweet 16s, but 15 other schools are always there with you. Nobody does this to a number 1 ranked team. Nobody does this at Mackey Arena. And when you go and and you check both of those boxes, it makes everybody, you and I included, take a closer look and start really digging into everything. And I think this time 2 days ago, college basketball fans, even people who follow it closely, was like, yeah, Iowa State, good team, but I don't know if they've got the A, B, C, whatever to do all of these things. Now I think that's all off the table. Wherever you want to rank them now, rank them. But when you talk about them, talk about them as a team that, yes, could win the Big 12, could, yes, go to the Final Four for the first time since 1944. And based on what we've seen through 9 games this season, yeah, they could win the national championship too.
Yeah, just a few more things from me, and then we can keep it moving if you want. I see the chat, chiming in on, Houston and the like. Hey, Houston could be the best team in the Big 12. Guess what? Arizona could be the best team in the Big 12. Iowa State could be the best team in the Big 12. BYU could be the best team in the Big 12. Kansas just got Peterson back. We'll get to him before the show's out, and looked pretty damn good against a one-loss Missouri team and ran them out. Texas Tech was dominant today as well. Oklahoma State still hasn't lost a game. The Big 12, as I said it a week ago on the pod, and then I changed my mind after a couple of bad losses by the Big 12 midweek. I'm now fully back on. The Big 12 is the best league in college basketball. I think the data is going to, frankly, bears that out as well. The SEC had a miserable weekend. The SEC at best is third, and really I think it's fourth at this point. Whatever, that's a different discussion altogether. My point on Iowa State is it has shown us, and the metrics actually speak to this, that it is the best team in the Big 12 to this point. You can make a very good case for Arizona. And guess what, Zona fans? We're going to get to you in just 1 second, but it was mighty, mighty, mighty impressive. You just can't undersell what ISU did. Purdue only made 4 threes in this game. Purdue will not have a game the rest of the season in which it makes 5 or fewer triples against an opponent in that building. It will not happen. Iowa State got out of there with 11 threes. Going in, both those teams were averaging better than 10 made threes a game. Iowa State hit the number. Purdue didn't come close. The game wasn't even close. And then Iowa also, by the way, got a win over the weekend, and that just sets up a very, very good game. Now, Iowa State will be favored and all that, but Iowa getting off to a relatively decent start under Ben McCollum. Happy for them on that. And then my last thing on this is Iowa State just lost its coach in football to Penn State. I know it's a little bit of a dagger after Penn State had a winding search. To me, kind of reminded me a little bit of the way that Louisville actually wound up getting Pat Kelsey. We'll see if it can go that well for Penn State the way it seemingly is going that well for Louisville so far. But for those fans to get this kind of win in a high-profile spot after you lose a beloved coach who at a certain point, you have a big enough school come along, you've been there forever, you can't say no. I totally get it. At least the Hoops team showing up in a big way and giving them reasons to have some real happiness after the downside of losing Matt Campbell.
Yeah. I thought Jamie Pollard was good talking about it. Like we were done wrong or lack of loyalty. He was like, Matt Campbell doesn't know Iowa State anything. And they seemed prepared for that moment. And I guess all's well that ends well for Penn State, but that was a wild coaching search. And I'll let the Cover 3 guys speak to it. But Matt Campbell, I went and Googled some preseason rankings of coaches like we do in basketball, and he was top 15 in most of these things. So to have a winding and weird coaching search that lands with a guy who at least, 5 months ago was considered a top 15 coach in a sport, I guess all's well that ends well, but we don't need to spend much more time on the Iowa State football coaching search. Hey, so Iowa State and Duke had the most impressive wins of the weekend. I think that goes without saying. But Arizona and Michigan, the 2 teams that I have ahead of them in the top 25-1, were also impressive. We're going to touch on those results next. Then we'll argue about who should be number 1 right now. But first, let's get a word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
So Iowa State and Duke had the most impressive wins of the weekend, but Arizona and Michigan were both also impressive. Final score, Arizona 97, Auburn 68. Final score, Michigan 101, Rutgers 60. Tommy Lloyd's Wildcats added a 4th win over a top 35 KenPom team and also a 4th 40-point win on the season. I'm sorry, I've got that wrong. Tommy Lloyd's Wildcats, they added the 4th win over a top 35 KenPom team. Dusty May's Wolverines added the 4th 40-point win of the season. They've got 4 of them through 8 games. Norlander, talk to me about what Arizona and Michigan did, and then let's talk big picture stuff.
Yeah, we can listen. Michigan mutilated Rutgers by 40 plus. It's just Michigan's thing now. It obviously should factor into the conversation we're going to have in just a couple of minutes here. But it's Rutgers, a non-factor. I didn't watch any of the game. They won. Rutgers is terrible. Michigan just kept pace with what it's been doing. There actually is something to be said for just curb stomping the teams that you're supposed to eviscerate, and Michigan continued to do that. Arizona on that court that I'm loving. Apparently, it's not every Arizona fan loves it, but I really do.
I love it. I love the font. Is it
the font, the typeface?
The typeface.
I think it's.
When I turned it on last night, same thing. I got out of studio, got back to the hotel, turned on the game, and I was like, I like that court.
Yeah, I like it with the big cactus. What's that called? There's another name for it there, a yucca, something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, it looks awesome to me. I love the way the floor looks, and I love the way Arizona looks. Arizona, if you're watching right now, I think that's just that's a popping floor right there. Good job by Arizona. The team is continuing to take care of business. Auburn, which got this huge game out of Tahad Pettiford, and then there was, some brief encounter with Keyshawn Hall and Pettiford going into a timeout and whatever. You're on the road. It's a tough environment. I'm not going to make too much out of it, but you see teammates kind of jawing at each other a little bit. That's just generally sports, but I couldn't help but notice that. Arizona is the bigger story here. Auburn, it goes on the road. It's got a really tough assignment, and it beat St. John's and NC State in two different spots, and then goes and gets Arizona and gets plucked off. It's got a game with Purdue coming up in less than 2 weeks. Arizona I thought this was the most complete game the Wildcats played this season. You had 18 from Pete, including 5 assists. You had Braden Burries, he had 16, and he was 7 of 8 from inside the three-point arc. I thought that was actually a really important progression game for him. Jaden Bradley, good again. He had 16. Who else did you have? Awaka, he only had 6, but I tell you what, I'm just a big Awaka fan. I like what he brings to them. Anthony Del Orso off the bench had 11. Krivas had 8. But, yeah, well-rounded performance overall by the Wildcats. And keep in mind, as they put on this performance, this was near the end of Saturday night, after we'd seen a lot of impressive stuff for some other teams, including the 2 that we just talked about to start the pod early in the day, and they were determined not to lose pace, and they didn't do it whatsoever.
I got this from CBS Sports Research last night. Michigan, the previous 5 seasons, had played 165 total games and won exactly 2 of them by at least 40 points. This season, Michigan has played 8 games and won 4 of them by 40 points. So they are just absolutely annihilating everybody other than TCU. TCU can play with them, apparently, but everybody else is struggling. So let's focus on these 4 undefeated teams for a second, because I did move them to 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the top 25 and 1. With all due respect to UConn, which is clearly awesome and would possibly still be undefeated if it weren't shorthanded when it welcomed Arizona to town, right? But for the sake of this conversation, let's take UConn and set them over here, because right now there are 4 undefeated teams in the country with net ratings above 30, according to KenPom. And those 4 teams are Arizona, Michigan, Duke, and Iowa State. Vandy, by the way, is close to that, but not quite there. And unlike Arizona, Michigan, Duke, and Iowa State, Vandy doesn't have like a signature win. Yeah.
Correct.
If you define that as a win over, let's say, a top 35 KenPom team. By the way, Duke has 3 of those. Arizona has 2. Iowa State has 2. Michigan has 1. So of those 4 teams, Michigan's got fewer top 25 KenPom wins, but they've got more beat your brains out of your head wins than anybody else in the country. So again, let's focus on those 4. I know you think Duke has the best resume. I don't disagree, but I wasn't compelled to drop. But I was not compelled to.
Fans would disagree, by the way, but I think Duke has the best resume. Keep it going.
Yeah. I don't necessarily like. If you just wanted to frame it, like Duke has more quadrant 1 wins than any other undefeated team. You could just say that, and it's true. We could argue it a million different ways. I just wasn't going to drop Arizona from number 1 in the top 25 and 1 after they beat Auburn by 29 points.
Totally.
So I've got it Arizona 1, Michigan 2, Duke 3, Iowa State 4, and then UConn at number 5. But would you agree with me that if you wanted to just die on a hill you could make an argument for any of those 4 teams to be number 1 in any human ranking right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because 2 different things here. First of all, that's an awesome top 5. And then, by the way, Gonzaga is rating as a top 3 team in some metrics as well. But they've got the loss to Michigan, so they got to be removed from this conversation. At this point, we're going to get to Gonzaga in just a little bit, by the way, and we're going to get to you, Kentucky. I think Michigan is the best team in college basketball on Sunday, December 7th / Monday, December 8th. That's who I think is the best team. I've seen them in person do things I've never seen at a multi-team event before in the regular season. They continue to pace with that by doing what they did against Rutgers. Right now, Michigan also ranks number 1 at KenPom, KPI, the Net, Torvik. They are the team that, from a metric standpoint, rates number 1. For me, that's the best team in the country. And then I think I'd go Michigan 1. I think I'd go Iowa State 2. I think I'd go, it's interesting. I think I'd go Arizona 3. Arizona 1, by the way. Dude, Auburn had 25 foul shots. Arizona had 12. So it was sub 13 in foul shots on its home floor and still won by 29. It did that because it forced Auburn to a horrific shooting night, 21 of 63 from the field. So I would go Arizona 3, and then I would go Duke 4 in terms of if I was doing a power ranking. But when it comes to the resume, 2 different things. And guess what, folks? We have so much road to go. So we don't even have to spend too much time on this. This is a good thing for college hoops. To me, Duke has the best resume that is also backed up by wins above bubble. It's backed up by Evamia resume quality heading into Monday as well. Strength of record does give it to Arizona at 1, Duke at 2. But for me, Duke is the only team with a 4-0 record against quad 1. It's got a combined 5-0 record in quad 1 and 2. The only other team that is true of is Michigan. And so given what Duke just did on the road against Michigan State, you can say, well, look what Michigan did against Gonzaga in a neutral. I get it. Splitting hairs. I think Duke's got the best resume, and I think Michigan's the best team.
So ESPN had an interesting graphic towards the end of the Arizona-Auburn game. They were like in total fill mode. We've all been there. Game gets out of hand, and now we're just talking. This is where they say, GP, keep it. We're going to keep your mic open. You ready to podcast? that when the game gets like this.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the graphic. And I don't know that I had ever heard this. Tell me if you've ever heard this. You probably had it in the stupid court report, but it was like 11 minutes deep into the court report, and I can't make it that far. Here was the graphic. ESPN flashed it up on the screen that 15 of the past 20 national champions were both undefeated and ranked in the AP poll at the end of November. Did you know that? I mean, that's a weird way.
Yeah, it got brought up on an HQ hit I did a few days ago. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Really good teams get off to really good starts, beat really good competition. It doesn't always happen, but it happens more often than not.
Right. I mean, 75% of the past 20 national champions were on the morning of December 1st, still undefeated and ranked in the AP poll. All right. So Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Iowa State, the teams we've been talking about, they all qualify.
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt, Purdue, Michigan State, and Louisville also qualify. I believe those are the 8 teams that were on the morning of December 1st, both undefeated and ranked in the AP poll. Do you believe our national champion comes from that list?
I believe our national champion will come from the top 12 of tomorrow's AP poll. Tomorrow is week 6 of the regular season AP poll, and every national champion for the past 23, 24 years has been ranked in the top 12 of that poll. All 8 of those teams will be in there. Plus, we get another 4 more. It will bear out yet again in 2026.
You sound like a politician on a Sunday morning show.
No, I'm giving you additional context and statistics on that. So it will not just be those 8, it will be additional 4 that will come because we have seen that at an even longer clip than the one that you just gave me. It goes back even further than the stat you just gave me. So yes, look at the top 12 on Monday morning, and the national champion will come from that group of 12. That which includes the 8 that you gave me.
Senator Norlander, I asked a very specific question, and the question was this. On the morning of December 1st, there were 8 teams that were undefeated and ranked in the AP poll. They were Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Iowa State, Vanderbilt, Purdue, Michigan State, and Louisville. 75% of our past 20 national champions have been undefeated and ranked on the morning of December 1st. We had 8 teams this season qualify. I just gave them to you. The question is, do you believe our national champion comes from that list?
I think there's a 75% chance it does.
You just can't answer a simple question. I see.
I did answer it.
How about this? Let's go with a yes or a no.
You answer it first. It's your question.
No.
Okay. Who's going to win it?
I don't know. But I mean, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. But I lose on here. Houston? You lose UConn? I don't like losing Kelvin Sampson and Dan Hurley.
Yep.
But I would say yes.
You know what you can do? You can use the 12 from Monday's AP Top 25, and both those teams are going to be in it. Come join me, buddy.
I can do it with 8. I don't need 12.
Okay.
I can do it with
See how that goes for you.
I can do it with 8, but I'm gonna need Purdue to get its shit together. But I can do it with 8.
Exactly. By the way, Arizona fans, like I see there's one or two of you in the chat here, like you're way too emotional about this. You have an awesome team. It has a top 2 resume. It's a top 3, top 4 team in the country. Like there's a lot of people that believe in your team. Stop being so in your feels over this, okay? Just because I don't think that Arizona is better than Michigan right now, or I think Duke has the better resume than Arizona. Just some weird vibes out of here. And that's not all of them, but there's a few that feel like they need verification or validation. They're all very good. The margins between these teams are so narrow, and we're 5 weeks into the season. Arizona could well be the best team in the country a week from now if they go smash Alabama, and we see some letdowns from some other teams there. So plenty of room to grow even still. It's really impressive what Arizona's been able to do, and by doing what it did against Auburn, it just only reinforced that. So don't get too bent out of shape just because the entire world doesn't unanimously agree that Arizona should be the number 1 team with the number 1 resume after 5 weeks.
Arizona, I got you ranked number 1, baby.
There you go. Go to your guy GP.
If you want somebody who believes in you, look over to this side of the screen.
And by the way, to all the Iowa State fans that want to be number 1, look at the guy who doesn't believe in you right there. Duke fans, Michigan fans, look who does not believe in you. It's an Arizona guy right there.
This is the one who.
There you go. There, yeah.
And Arizona fans, if you don't like what he says on mic, you should hear what he says off mic.
Who are you pointing at, GB? By the way, that's the wrong direction. Yeah,
it's the right direction when I'm looking at me.
Yeah. You're pointing to Jerry Parrish. That's who you're pointing to.
Okay, is this the right way? Because I need to know when I can point to you. Is this the right way?
You can watch back and see if that proves to be.
I don't have time to watch back. How many hours do you think are in the day?
I'm going to go 24.
I think that's the right answer. Trivia time. How many hours are in the day? Trivia time. How many hours did I sit on a tarmac Friday night?
That's tough.
Oh, it was tough.
That's tough scene.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Yeah, I think we solved everything there.
I think everything's solved.
Kentucky fans, you are Kentucky. You have been spared for 37.5 minutes, and it's time.
Oh yeah, but we're about to ask big tough questions about your stupid team. Oh, we're about to ask big stupid questions about your stupid team. Yeah, we got to get to Kentucky next. Things have gotten really bad in Lexington. Mark Pope's Wildcats lost by 1 million points in Nashville to Gonzaga. There were lots of boos. They were loud. Get a word from our partners and let's dive in.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Final score: Gonzaga 94, Kentucky 59. Yikes! Kentucky's now 5-4 overall, 0-4 in quadrant 1 with 0 wins over teams in the top 185 of the net. Best win at home over Tennessee Tech, which is 188th in the net. All 5 of Kentucky's wins fall in quadrant 4.
Oh, God.
Is Mark Pope going to pull out of this, or are we going to have to hear his own fans boo him all season? Because that's mean.
It's deserved. He would agree with it, by the way, that it's deserved.
I mean, it didn't hurt.
Gonzaga, we will get to you before we get out of this segment here, but we have to talk about Kentucky. Frankly, maybe it's an upset that it took us this long to talk about Kentucky. It did happen Friday night. This is the most significant result of the weekend, I think, behind Iowa State doing what it did at Purdue. And if you want to make the case that it's actually Kentucky over Iowa State because Kentucky still hasn't beaten a high major team, I'm not here to tell you you're necessarily wrong. the dispiriting thing about this was you come off the ugly but close home win Tuesday against UNC, and then you turn around and just get sliced and diced by Gonzaga. Like, down early, down big, body language was bad. You had Boogie Cousins tweeting the team doesn't play like it has heart. That's a paraphrase. I don't have the tweet up in front of me right now, but you've got a very prominent alum taking to social media before the game is over. Poke gets asked about it in the post-game press conference afterward, as he should. And then he had a good line. I'm pissed at the coach too. But I sent it out on Friday, and I mean it. Kentucky is the most overrated, overpaid, and disappointing team in college basketball through the first 5 weeks of the season. There have been some other disappointing teams. None of them were ranked in the preseason top 10 that have the most expensive roster in college basketball. That's where we are with this. And it is wild to see how violently this is swung on Pope at this point. Jalen Lowe did return, non-factor. He's going to have to ease back in, whatever that means. Ortega Owe had 16 points. But if you watch the game, like it was, non-effective. It didn't even matter. Cam Williams started 0 points. There's a thought that there's just too many guys in the rotation. I saw Greg Anthony made a point on TNT. I guess it would have been late Friday. I think maybe it was Saturday, where he was essentially saying, when you have a rotation that you want to make 10, 11 deep, and now you're paying all these college players all this money, and there's certain expectations and role allocation and what you're asked to do, settling into a role versus what you think you're going to do, given how much you might be paid relative to the rest of your teammates or rest of other friends you might have in college basketball that are on other teams, and you believe you know what they're being paid. It was a good point by Greg. I think that he can turn it around. Our poll from earlier in the show was which team has the best resume, and Arizona beat that narrowly over Duke. And I know we've got a current one here that we'll have to get to in a few on, will Kentucky make the tournament in 2026? I'm interested to see what our live viewership votes on that, yes or no. I would say this is probably me just leaning into my my priors and some confirmation bias. I would still say yes. This is a guy who was very wrong and had Kentucky number 3 in the preseason. I might have been right about Michigan, but man, was I wrong about Kentucky, and everyone was wrong about Kentucky. They do get Indiana at home in a week. You would think that they can get that win, but we'll see. They get St. John's at the CBS Sports Classic in Atlanta, or Catlanta. Those are the 2 non-conference games of note left. Got to pick those off. And then you'll have playing the SEC to uplift. But as I referenced previously, the SEC is down. So maybe that helps you because the collective talent in the league and team quality isn't as good as it was, but you'll still have lower end quad 1 opportunities, and the quad 2 games might not be as hard this season as they were last season. I think that's going to prove to be true, but it's a major, major, major issue. And to me, maybe the biggest story in the sport through the first 5 weeks of the season.
I think the point Greg made about paying too many guys is an interesting point, and something I've had other coaches talk to me about. I think we're still so early in this that anybody insisting they know how to do it, and if you don't do it this way, you're doing it the wrong way. I think that's crazy. I sort of appreciated when I was at Big 12 Media Day, Big 10 Media Day. I mean, I talked to coaches who won national championships, and they acknowledged a little uncertainty about how to program build, how to roster build, how much to use the portal, how much to use high schools, how much does roster continuity matter. We're all learning as we go. But one thing I have consistently heard from, I don't know, a handful of guys I respect is that it's cool if you got all the money and you can just go out and pay everybody, but you probably don't want 11 millionaires on your team. You probably, like in the NBA, it's a different deal because it's just but in college, this is all new. And when somebody signs for $800,000, they don't think they're doing that to play 11 minutes in a game. And I'm not saying that's an issue or the main issue at Kentucky, but it's got to be on the list of stuff somewhere that's causing problems, because they look like a team with no heart and no chemistry. That's what they look like. The sort of the whole college cliche thing for decades has been, play for the name on the front of the jersey. And, I don't think you had to have to grow up in Big Blue Nation to care about Kentucky once you get there. Like up until a few weeks before he was getting ready to move to Kentucky, John Wall thought he was going to play college basketball in Memphis. All right. Then he went to Kentucky and he became a Kentucky legend. And I know cares deeply about that place. So the idea that you can't in the NIL era or in the transfer portal era have a roster filled with people who care about where they're at, but it does not look like that's the case at Kentucky. It looks like they spent $22 million on some talented dudes, but they don't have a basketball team and they can't shoot. They're 31.9% from three on the season. That now ranks like in the 230s in the country. It's a mess. And the whole SEC thing aspect of this, it can cut both ways. On one hand, you can say, listen, we're going to the SEC. And so, right now, all of our losses are good losses. I mean, they're not good. Our coach is getting booed out of the building.
They're the good teams. I know what you mean.
But they're good teams, right? So, look, it ain't like we taken a quadrant 4 loss or something like that, and we got all these opportunities in front of us, and so we're fine. Like, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is you can't beat anybody any good, and in the SEC, you're going to have to play a lot of teams that are good. So who are you? You better figure it out, because you can think it won't get worse than it got on Friday night, but it can.
Yeah, it can. It definitely can. Also, like, the ironic thing about this roster is they don't shoot well from three. A lot of the components, a lot of the players, the way they play, not all of them, but I don't know. It feels like a John Calipari orchestrated roster in some ways to me, which is not what I expected, to be honest. We'll see if they can snap out of the funk. On the Gonzaga end,
just real quick on this to that point, then I'll jump right back out. But
okay.
As intentional as it appears Pat Kelsey built his roster to put shooters around Michael Brown, it doesn't look like that same intention was used at Kentucky. Like, okay, how are these? Like, the first question, I guess, on some level is like, is this person good enough to play for us, help us? And then it's like, okay, we got these people. How do we fit them together? And at Louisville, I think Pat did an incredible job of figuring out how that fits together. At Iowa State, I think they figured out how that fits together. I know Purdue just got blasted, but I think Matt's done a great job of figuring out how things fit together. At Kentucky, it doesn't look like there was a lot of – I shouldn't even say that, because, like, Mark's a smart guy. I'm sure there was a lot of thought.
Oh, yeah. There no doubt was a lot of thought. And
I shouldn't say it that way.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
It just doesn't appear to fit together well. So maybe the thought was incorrect.
Yeah, and this is just – you're going to get this every year with the X number of teams, let alone high major teams, where – you're going to have a lot of inspiration and optimism in the offseason, given the pieces you got, what they did. And just not everyone can win all the games. Some teams are just not going to work. We'll see if Kentucky can actually work. I know Pope, at least I know. I got to spend some behind the scenes time with this team earlier this season. And it does seem like a group that does really like each other, with a staff that's really well connected to the group. Now, can they figure out what's going on here? Because time, from an at-large perspective, time literally is running out. Right now, Kentucky, they got time, but it's not that much time. 148 in KPI and resume strength. 148. It's better in strength of record. They're 113, and wins above bubble. They're 72. That's still well out of the NCAA tournament picture. Let's be clear, but they're going to have to really turn it around. Gonzaga, good on you. You get destroyed against Michigan, became the first team ever to lose by 30 plus against a ranked opponent, and then in the next game against a ranked opponent, win by 30 plus. No team had ever boomeranged or pendulum swung like that ever before. And what Few told me in Vegas was kind of ringing in my ears as I watched this game play out, where he was really at a loss for, who are these guys that showed up in our Gonzaga uniforms and played there? Like, I don't know those people. That's not who we are, and how we bailed on our entire game plan 10 minutes in. Just weird stuff. He had never taken a loss like that. He goes, until 2 hours ago, like, we were one of the 5 best teams in the country. Well, again, they look like one of the 5 best teams in the country. They rank 3rd at KenPom right now. Wins over Oklahoma, Creighton, Arizona State. To be determined if any of those are going to be NCAA tournament teams, but nonetheless, they are high majors. No, they have the neutral over a good Alabama team, and now they just vaporized Kentucky, and so that's notable. We'll next see Gonzaga this weekend against a good opponent in UCLA, but we'll take that as it comes and address the Bulldogs further there. Just a very, very inspiring performance from them. I didn't want to just toss them to the side when we're talking Kentucky. It is a very good sign for Gonzaga that it was able to turn around and do this. Even if Kentucky's a wounded animal, has an identity crisis, all that, whatever. You could have done that and won the game by 9. You didn't do that. You won the game 94-59, and it was a no doubt about wire-to-wire kind of thing. Really impressive from Fuse guys.
Yeah, this is one of those, because I saw a little bit of this when I posted the top 25 and 1 on Saturday morning. It's like, yes, everybody's impressed by what the Zags did. That is one of the most respected programs in the sport. But the story was Kentucky. And so I ended up writing entirely about Kentucky, and you have some Gonzaga fans that are like, well, what about us? Like, we know who you are. We know what you did. But when the Kentucky head coach, who is also the captain of a national championship team, is getting booed off the floor in Nashville because you're beating the brains in, that's the story. Last thing on Kentucky, I'll take it away. Like, he's just points down, rebounds down, steals down, field goal percentage down, 3-point field goal percentage down. Preseason SEC player of the year feels a little RJ Davis-y in the sense that, like, you have this All-American level season. They bring you back for a big paycheck, and I don't know that one has anything to do with the other, but if he was supposed to take a step this season while Kentucky did the same, that's not happening.
All right. You want to take a tour, do a little weekend whip around here and take a scan of what we saw here Friday, Saturday, and even into Sunday?
Yeah, let's bounce around the other notable results from the weekend, and we'll start it with Darryn Peterson returning to Kansas's rotation. Before we do it, let's get one more word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, Norlander, let's whip around the rest of the weekend. Let's start with Darryn Peterson making his return to KU's rotation. Last week, I told everybody, relax. There's no sensible reason to believe Darryn Peterson is done playing college basketball. Earlier this afternoon, he played college basketball, 17 points in 23 minutes. Kansas beat Mizzou 80-60. Are we done with the DP conspiracies now?
Hopefully so. Yeah, 17 points, 23 minutes. Didn't really play much in the second half. They didn't need him to. Trey White was the other big step-up guy in this game. Mark Mitchell cannot do it all himself for Missouri. If you're a Missouri fan, you get this game against Kansas, you're just glad the border war is back, although it is a Packers-Bears situation, I admit. But you can't even keep it more competitive than this. Peterson, he steps on the floor. And, he didn't have one of his top 2 games or anything like that by any means. But his presence on the floor just changes everything about Kansas. Happy to see him back. He did make, I don't know if you saw, it was brought to attention to me by a Kansas fan that he made a little bit of a video where he just spoke on the injury and how he'd never sit out. Did you happen to see that or no?
I didn't see it, but like that all made sense to me.
We were in the podcast was in the video. Like it ended with me talking about how people thought he might be trying to load manage. And then I say something like, I actually don't think that's fair to Darryn Peterson. I'd like to actually hear from him first. And then he had this, he wasn't like face camera, like mood lighting, but he was sitting in, I think, a training room, a locker room, and just kind of talking about the past few weeks. And this was in advance of the game that really, I think that's really what allowed people to have some real hope, even more than 3 or 4 hours before they played on Sunday, that he was come back. He did. And let's hope it's for good. Because frankly, he's an amazing talent. And I would like to see Darryn Peterson play in every single game for the rest of the season. Yeah,
it was 6 of 14 from the field, 3 of 9 from 3 in limited minutes, but it was unnecessary to use him any more than they did. We don't have to spend any more time on it. I just was like, if he didn't want to play college basketball, he would have never enrolled. He has a hamstring injury. If you follow the NBA, this is how they deal with hamstring injuries. They always take longer than you think because they're trying to be more careful than most fans think that they should. So if this is where I think there was a little bit of a breakdown between people who follow the NBA closely and people who follow college basketball solely. Because if you follow the NBA at all, you know that you hear hamstring and it's like, probably won't see that person for at least 3 weeks and possibly much longer. So Darryn Peterson is back. That's a good thing. Louisville 87, Indiana 78. Isaac McNeely 5 of 9 from 3. He had 15 points. The Cardinals shot above 40% from 3 on 31 attempts. This, of course, after they had really struggled from the field earlier in the week against Arkansas at Bud Walton. What'd you make of what you saw from Pat Kelsey's team?
Just a really nice, impressive win. Louisville had 5 in double figures for the first time this season. They also got off to a 16-0 start. So if you eliminated the first 6 minutes of the game, which you can't do, Indiana was essentially able to be level with Louisville for the rest of the way, but they got off to a big lead in that race, and Indiana was not going to catch up with its strides to get there. And so it takes the loss. Conwell had 21. DeVries had 26. But and DeVries is a really good player. He could be one of the 5 best players in the Big Ten this season. We'll see. It's certainly on the table, but they're going to need more than that. I'm still curious on where Indiana is going to land. I know going into the season, I think you and I were relatively close on. I think they're going to be on the fence, like one way this way, and they're the last team in the field. One way that way, they're going to be going and heading to the NIT or the Crown or whatever the hell they got to play in. And I still haven't moved off that too much. Back-to-back losses. The Minnesota one was a little bit of an out-of-body experience in the negative for Indiana. But if there was ever a day, I mean, truly, if there was ever a day to get off to an awful start on the hardwood and get beat by Louisville, it was on Saturday, because Indiana wins the Big Ten football championship. Curt Cignetti continues to author one of the most unlikely coaching stories in the history of American sports. And I'm sure there was a good portion of Indiana fans that went to that basketball game to start, left disappointed, and didn't give a flying F about it, because they were elated and are still elated if they happen to also take in this podcast in whatever form. That's an incredible thing for the Hoosiers, who are now obviously the number 1 team in the college football playoff and have a bye. I'm amazed by what Curt Cignetti has done. And so Darryn DeVries actually is in the rare position of being an Indiana coach, right, particularly in a year 1 where, let's be clear, and don't get me wrong on this, like once we get to the end of the college football playoff and get whether Indiana wins it or however that goes, once that's fully in the rear view, Hoosier fans are going to be plenty dialed in and have a lot to expect. But he's been given plenty of grace here in year 1. And so this was as overshadowed of a ranked loss that Indiana could have ever asked for, literally ever, because Indiana football is never this good.
Yesterday was one of the rare days where we had the basketball crew in studio and also the college football crew in studio. So we were all together, for much of the day, and we watched the Big Ten championship game together. You've been in there. There's like 12 TVs, and it was on one, and we had basketball on the others, and blah, 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 blah. But we were sort of talking like, what is the basketball version of Cignetti? Because this is crazy. And the best I could come up with is maybe a Division II coach you've never heard of gets the Penn State basketball job, and in year 2 has it as the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
Basically something like that. I mean, Brad Stevens taking Butler to back-to-back national championship games out of the Horizon League when Stevens was working at Eli Lilly is, from a coaching perspective, I think that's the analog. Someone asked me this on Twitter on Saturday night as well. The basketball one, I think I've even said it on the show. Indiana had the worst winning track record of any power conference team ever. Well, Northwestern, some people were pushing back and saying Nebraska, because Nebraska has never won an NCAA tournament game. Northwestern has won an NCAA tournament game, but actually its conference championships or lack thereof is even worse. I mean, that program had nothing for 70 years. It would be like Northwestern getting to Selection Sunday and being the number 1 overall seed. It is unthinkable for us to ever get to that point. He's pulled it off with Indiana, and it's a really, really awesome thing. I obviously had that Saturday night, whole weekend. It was a mandatory 3-4 screen kind of weekend, and I was, of course, dialed into the football as much as the basketball on Saturday.
I don't live in the football world, so I don't know those people for the most part, but I can imagine somebody like Curt Cignetti coming into the basketball world. Imagine a Division II coach getting a bad Big Ten job and talking about Google me, I win. Imagine how many text messages you would get about that guy from other coaches. Like, who does this guy think he is? I know that was going on among college football coaches. Like, who does this guy think he is? And he appears to be just as awesome as he says. He's the rare combination of somebody who knows he's awesome and is actually just as awesome as he appears to believe he is.
A little bit of not exactly the same on-camera appearance, but a little bit of they won the game and he's walking off the floor. A little bit of a Jay Wright non-reaction when they beat Ohio State. It's like the biggest win in the history of the program. I thought that was pretty.
Everything about the guy is hilarious to me. I think it was pregame interview at Penn State. Maybe. Did you see this one? I could be conflating stories now, but
because I want to say that Jenny had that on CBS.
It was something, and it was something along the lines of he was asked about, the Penn State's never won, or Indiana's never won here, or hasn't won here since whatever, and he's like, this team's never played here. It just was like that's the
actually. I mean, it's also true.
This is a brand new team. This team's never played here. we'll be fine. And then they go win the game. Just an awesome story, man. Just
really, really good stuff. If you want more college football, obviously head to the Cover 3. If we have time, we're running long. I did have a thought or two on the CFP, but we might have to bypass that. We still got more stuff to talk about. Illinois beats Tennessee 75-62. So Illinois is now 2-2 in non-con games this season against top 15 opponents. It's got the win over Texas Tech, and then it's got the win over Tennessee. The losses have come against Alabama and UConn. It's a really, really strong 4-pack, frankly. Illinois, how about this? It was the first surprising stuff here. This was in Illinois' notes. Illinois, it was their first ranked versus ranked win in non-conference play since 2008. No, sorry. Illinois' fewest points. Let me correct that. Illinois' fewest points allowed in the top 25 non-conference ranked on ranked game since 2008 against Missouri. It was their first ranked on ranked win since the 2024 NCAA Elite Eight. They didn't get one at all last season, and even in Big Ten play. That was surprising to me. They held Tennessee to just 62 points, which I thought was notable. Keaton Wagler had his best game in an Illinois uniform, which I think you get the win and you get stuff like that. That's when you're an Illinois fan. You're like, okay, maybe we can really be in that top 3, top 4 consistently in the Big Ten when we get there. 16-11 for him, hit some shots from beyond the arc. Really impressive there. I want your thoughts on Illinois real quick. And then I also want your thoughts on Tennessee, because I'm not entirely sure what to make of this team. I saw them 10, the whole Vegas cliche, 15-round heavyweight battle, blow for blow, the whole thing. They beat Houston, and since then it's like the Avengers meme. Like, you beat Houston, but at what cost? Everything, because they have lost everyone since then. They lost to Kansas and Vegas. They lost at Syracuse by 2, and then they lose to Illinois. That's the worst loss by margin of the 3. I get the sense that Tennessee is going to be one of those teams where when we get to Selection Sunday, we're going to look up and say, oh, it's got the win against Houston. And then it's going to pull off like 2 or 3 really good road wins in SEC play. But it's also going to have a collection of losses where we don't know if this is one of the 10 best teams or is somewhere outside the top 20. I'm just getting a little bit of uncertain readings off of the Vols right now.
On Illinois, I don't have anything new to say about them. That's a team that I think is going to be in that 10 to 20 range in the rankings much of the season. Clearly, they're a factor in the Big Ten, good enough in theory to win it. If I were putting Big Ten tiers, I'd probably have Michigan and Purdue in tier 1, and then Illinois would be somewhere in tier 2. But Brad's got another uniquely built, very good basketball team. And I know Tennessee has been struggling, but to go into Tennessee, I know not at Tennessee, but in Nashville and handle the Vols, that was impressive stuff. For UT, it's wild. You don't expect to beat Houston and then immediately can't beat anybody, but that's where they're at. Back-to-back losses, Kansas, Syracuse, Illinois. I'm a data sorter. You know that about me. So I went over to barttorvik.com. I just said, all right, let's start with the Kansas game. Let's run it through the Illinois game. What are we looking at here? And you touched on it. It's offense. I mean, they're not good anywhere in this 3-game stretch. That's why they're on a 3-game losing streak, but 103rd in adjusted offensive efficiency, 55th in adjusted defensive efficiency. So Tennessee, in its best years under Rick, has been one of the more physically dominant, overwhelming defensive teams in the sport. In this 3-game stretch, they've done none of that. And then what has been a little bit of an issue there, particularly with early tournament departures, they can sometimes struggle to score. And in this little 3-game stretch, they're struggling to score.
We don't have to spend too much time on St. John's Ole Miss. I do want to know where you have them. It was a hideous game. I mean, repeat performance from the St. John's Arkansas NCAA tournament. Just non-display from beyond the arc. Let me bring this up here. 6 of 38 combined from both these teams from beyond the arc. It was not a good game. St. John's gets the win, which is important. Chris Beard's Mississippi Rebels are 5-4 and have lost. There's actually a couple teams now that are riding 4 and 5 game losing streaks. We'll get to a couple of those before we get out of the show here. So that is going the wrong way in a hurry, and the only halfway decent win is against Memphis. And credit to Memphis, they got the win over Baylor on CBS, the third game of our triple header. Tigers absolutely needed that one, and they got it. So at least they got that. But they're not even a top 60 team, and that's the Rebs' best win. Where do you have the Johnnies? And any quick? I mean, I don't know if there's a ton to take away from this game. It was on a weekend filled with so much must-watch sports. This one was maybe the most unappealing of anything I watched.
Yeah, it's just something that happened. And like you mentioned, Ole Miss 4-game losing streak now. They started the year 24th at KenPom. and have slipped down to 53rd. So that's going the wrong direction. With St. John's, I've got them. Let me double check here. I believe 22nd in the top 25 and 1. That feels about like where they belong. A top 25 team, but probably closer to 25 than 10. You'd agree with that?
For sure. I think I still have them in the top 25 realm, I think. But man, that was like they got the win, but it was ugly. I could be talked out of it pretty easily. By the way, our live poll, Josh sent in the numbers. Will Kentucky make the tournament? 56% say no, more than half, and all the others say yes. Let's tour through. Let me tour through a few things here, and then tell me what stands out to you. Had some undefeated teams go down over the weekend. We had USC blew an 18-point lead at home. Yeah. This one like totally gets lost in the mix, but they blew an 18-point lead at home to Washington. That gave the Huskies their first win of the season against a high major program, and actually the Big Ten. I had this up in the Indiana section, I think. The Big Ten had 4 ranked teams lose on the same day for the first time since, I believe, 2009. Now, you got to have 4 ranked teams, period, to even qualify that. And it could have been worse, but it wasn't. So they had 4 lose. So USC is knocked out. Hans Steinbach, by the way, really, really, really good freshman. His numbers are very good. If Washington actually can make some inroads, they could really have something there. Because they're in the Pacific Northwest, they haven't been a big team so far. He's not getting a ton of love, but he is going to be taken in the first round. Also, Colorado got clipped on CBS Sports Network at Colorado State. It's a pretty good watch. How do I know? We were decorating our tree, and my littlest guy was more invested in the Colorado State game than putting on the school-made ornaments. But it was a good time. I actually tried to get him watching you in studio, and I was gonna text it to you. But and I swear this is not an intended shot, because it's not. By the time the studio stuff came on, then he went back to putting on the tree. I was hoping to get him watching you and send it, but he was just watching the hoops. And then when the studio,
he didn't need me. He didn't need me. If he ever needs me, just FaceTime me. I'll talk to him whenever he wants.
Rams are off to a nice start, by the way, under Ali Frokman.
Yes.
Job. Right. Good stuff. We'll see if they can continue. Mountain West had a solid weekend overall. Virginia Tech ended George Mason's undefeated bid, so they get the win there. LSU went down big against Texas Tech. Admittedly, I was all dialed in on Bears Packers, but I did have that game on the screen, and I was following along, even though there wasn't a lot. At one point in the first half, I want to say Tech was up by like 16, and McCaslin's mother effing his guys in the huddle. And I was like, this is hilarious, man. You're going to cruise to a win here. But that's what coaches do. Like, I totally get it. A major readjustment and a wake-up call there for LSU. If there was one more undefeated, I might have lost it when that happened, but I don't think another undefeated fell there. Before I get to some other results, any takeaways from what I just gave you?
Well, the USC one was like, I mean, you're going to lose games in the Big Ten, particularly on the road. I don't have USC schedule in front of me, but a typical Big Ten schedule, like you're going to look up one day and you're at Mackey, you're at the Breslin Center, you're at Michigan, and good luck. So when you are ranked, your opponent isn't. You're home, your opponent isn't. You're up 18, your opponent's down 18. This is all basic stuff, but you got to knock that out. Muss is somebody who understands the value of having your program on the radar. Like I know there are coaches out there who will say things like, I don't care about the rankings. I don't look at this. I don't pay attention to that. But like Muss pays attention to everything. Like Muss knows when his team is in the top 25 and 1 and when it's not. He knows when his team's in the AP poll and it's not. And he values that type of stuff. And this is the type of loss that rips that away. We could be talking about undefeated USC. GP, where do you have them? You got them in the teams now? And instead you just give that one away, and it cost you some stuff. It's just early December stuff. Not the biggest deal in the world, but it's a deal, and that was a bad loss.
I think my favorite thing from the week,
I want to be clear, not because they lost to a bad team, but because you were up 18 at home and you need to knock that out.
Yeah, no, it definitely negates some stuff. My favorite thing from the weekend, you were stuck on the tarmac, so I don't even think you got a chance to watch much of this, if any of it, was a crosstown shootout. Xavier beat Cincinnati. Yeah. Trey Carroll, who looks like he fights in the Army alongside Aquaman. Apparently his nickname on the team might be Aquaman. He started his career. He was on the
Final Four team.
He was on the FAU Final Four team, and he goes for 30 points, 7 rebounds. Before I keep going, were you on, like, did you get to see any of it, or were you like tarmac hell and you missed it and all that stuff?
Bro, I spent all night in the airport Friday night. I did not see any of it. And if I didn't see any of it. Friday night was ridiculous. I won't bore you with the details, but no, I did not see this game.
Okay. Josh, if you just replay it again one more time for me here. He not only does he go 30-7, this is one of 3 times he did this. So you see him celebrating. He is full on pantomiming zip him up. This was not even the biggest zip him. I think he might. Does he do zip him up at the end of this one? No, I don't think he did. Dude, it was full on screaming zip him up when I said, this is incredible. This guy, like, you would have thought he was born and bred in Cincinnati and made to hate the Bearcats. And once you put on that uniform and then play this game, you are 79-74, a really, really good game, an awesome showing. I desperately looked. No one captured the video that I could find. Maybe it's on YouTube. I couldn't find it, but he does the post game. Okay. And he's a wild man. He's beside himself because he took over the game. It was incredible. And then in the post game, he goes, I got my wife up there. We're gonna go have pizza tonight. Man, shouts to Minute Maid Pink Lemonade. It's my favorite drink. And it was just compared to the maniac that I saw losing his mind 3 minutes before, it was an incredible juxtaposition. Shouts to Trey Carroll. I mean it. Instant legend status at that program in that city. You win that game. Oh, by the way, Xavier has won 4 in a row. Richard Pitino, he knows the deal. He shows up to the local spot. Maybe it's called Dana's. I'm not quite sure. I've yet to get to Cintas, and it's a major career regret to this point. I will get there eventually one day. But I think the whole deal is when you're the Xavier coach and you get a big win, you crash the post-game festivities, and then you say, drinks on me. So he dropped a few $1,000s on the folks there in Cincinnati. Really cool scene. A little bit buried because it was Friday night, but this was way, way better than anything that was happening with Kentucky Gonzaga. GP.
Glad you talked about Trey Carroll the way you did, because it emphasizes the point I was making earlier. Kentucky did spend a lot of money on a roster, and it looks like they lack chemistry and lack a lot of the other stuff you need to be a great college basketball team. But don't think for a second that there aren't transfers that can't really become a part of it very quickly. And Trey Carroll is an excellent example of that. That guy was an owl 8 months ago. Okay. The guy was an owl 8 months ago and had possibly never been to Cincinnati in his life. All right. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's possible. And you saw that. You saw that. Not only was he caring deeply about in-city rivalry, but he was referencing stuff from the past that suggests he's done his homework. I love it.
It was so good. I mean, because the studio guys, and we'll keep it moving. We're going to wrap here in a second. But the studio guys, they saw like how demonstrative he was. Like the zip him up was Holloway doesn't have anything on him. He really doesn't. And so I think they were leaning into that in the immediate post-game interview. And they're like, all right, what do you got ahead for you? He goes, oh no, I got my wife in the stands. Like, we're going to get pizza. I'm not getting in no trouble tonight. And it was a really, really cool television moment. Yeah. I need Xavier to be good because Trey Carroll is now one of my favorite players in the sport. And I love the fact that like he stayed at FAU after Dusty left and now he gets this moment. Totally deserves it. Keep it moving. Just a few more. The uh-ohs. TCU beat Florida and Wisconsin, then lost at home to Notre Dame. Not great, but here's even worse. Marquette is 5-5. It lost by 20 at Wisconsin, to be expected. Oregon has lost 5 in a row. Got dropped at UCLA. Oregon is now 4-5. Not good. On the better side, Seton Hall and Arizona State went to Maui, and they're doing well. Even they did well there, and they're doing well after. Seton Hall won at K-State. So Seton Hall 7-1. K-State is now 5-4 with 4 straight losses. It looks adrift as a program. Got to admit, I'm a little stunned by that. Even if they were let down last season, I didn't think it'd be a repeat. We're heading that way. Arizona State hit 13 threes and beat Oklahoma and Phoenix. That's a good win for ASU and Bobby Hurley, picked at the bottom of the Big 12. Guess what? ASU is 7-2. Good on you guys. And then the only other things from Sunday, SMU won over A&M in overtime. Got a big time performance from one of its guys. That's a 8-1, 9-1 team now. Good on SMU. Nebraska is still undefeated. Handled Creighton. Doesn't have a signature win yet, but it's quietly getting it done. Hoiberg doesn't have Connor Seaton. He's out for the year. That's notable. And then the late Sunday game or I say late, it was one of the latest tips of relevant games. Carolina did not have an issue with Georgetown. They win big. Another good result for UNC. and for the ACC. So big weekends for the Big 12 and the ACC specifically. Bad weekend for the SEC, which may not produce double-digit bids this season. We'll see. That's all I got for you.
All right, let's look ahead to the next couple of days, and then we'll get out of here. On Monday, I should tell you, you ain't really got nothing to worry about, all right? There's no currently ranked teams on the schedule, very few games. Great night to catch up on the Diddy documentary on Netflix. Oh, buddy.
I won't be watching that, but okay.
Man, I don't like to judge a man from a distance. It sounds like this Diddy was a bad guy. It sounds like he's a bad guy.
Is this, you're finally coming to this realization?
Nah, I mean, I think I've realized it for a little while, but it really
crystallizing for you?
It's crystallizing for me.
Okay.
I'm not usually comfortable judging a man I've never met, right? But it doesn't look like he's a good person. It does not look like he's a good person. On Tuesday, Illinois at Ohio State, Penn State at Indiana, and then the big one, Florida versus UConn at Madison Square Garden. Are you going to be at MSG on Tuesday?
I will be at MSG for the Jimmy V. I'll do what I do every year for the Jimmy V. I'll be there, taking both games. Get home really late, but we'll be here for you Wednesday morning for a recap on that. But yes, Florida UConn is the late tip. I do appreciate the fact that we get BYU Clemson. All things considered with Clemson, Tigers are 7-2. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. It's DeBanza, though. This was supposed to be someone else. Doesn't matter now. But I remember they were trying to get someone else to get BYU to play, and they couldn't get it done. And then Clemson stepped in. It's DeBanza at the world's most famous arena. 6:30 tip there. So I'll be in the building for both of those. We'll have plenty of stuff to talk about on the Wednesday show.
Best I can tell is Diddy he lost his way. Man, he lost his way.
You might be being too kind to him. This is entirely your call. I don't want to go long. Do you want to end the show, or do you want to get 5 minutes off your chest about the joke that is the College Football Playoff Selection Committee?
I'll get 5 minutes off my chest. I tweeted earlier today from, LaGuardia.
That actually makes it better that you were at LaGuardia as this was happening, because I was on my couch just taking in the inevitable clown show that was the College Football Playoff Committee.
I was in Manhattan less than 24 hours. And so I was watching the selection show from LaGuardia and tweeted, they better be glad I don't still do this poll of text.
Well, which gets me to, you sure you can't bring it back one more time?
Oh, I could. I could.
They'd take it too. And by they, I mean, you pop in and say, you know what, you want me to throw out a little poll of text situation here? They'd take it in an instant.
Just come out of retirement. Listen, I have no issue with Miami over Notre Dame for the last spot, what amounts to the last at-large spot. I do think, given how close the resumes are, the head-to-head should probably be the determining factor, and obviously Miami owns that. But Miami has always owned that, and for them to flip it at the last minute is worthy of the mockery that it is getting. And they can mealy-mouth it all they want to, but I would have more respect for them if they would just admit the truth, because here's the truth. Here's the truth. You know what they decided to do either late last night or early this morning? Admit that they've had it wrong and they've got to flip it.
Right. But that's not what was said by Hunter Yurachek on Sunday.
I know, because these guys, man, they have a hard time. They have a hard time sitting in that chair and answering questions honestly. If he'd have just been honest, that's what they did. They just decided, hey, guys, all right, mics off, all the mics off. We're going to get killed tomorrow if we have Notre Dame in above Miami, and people are going to scream head-to-head. So let's fix that. And I think they got it right. I think they got it right at the end. But
they got some of it right. I think they got all of it right. They got that part of it right. Notre Dame.
I mean that specifically. I think they got that part right at the end, but the path that they took to get there was wrong. There is nothing that really matters that happened between Tuesday and Sunday morning to either one of those teams, and yet you flipped them at the end. That's ridiculous. If you want to talk about something else they got wrong, the idea that Ole Miss doesn't get punished for losing Lane Kiffin is just stupid. That's just dumb. And my wife's an Ole Miss grad. We care about Ole Miss. This is a big thing for my home state. I am thrilled that Ole Miss got a 6 seed and gets to host Tulane, because that probably means the Rebels are going.
That's annoying too, because that's a regular season rematch, and they should have put JMU. They should have flipped JMU and Tulane to begin with. That's might be like 5 or 6 down the list. But you saw this matchup earlier in the season. Why are we getting it again?
Yeah, because they don't have bracketing principles that prevent it the way the NCAA tournament would have.
And apparently JMU was more deserving of the 11 than the 12 to begin with, but the committee put JMU at 12, whatever. There's Parrish. There's that. There's the fact that football has now caught up to basketball in this regard. The SEC championship game doesn't mean anything. Literally, it was for one extra piece of hardware to go in Georgia's facilities and then a bunch of cardio for 3+ hours. It did not matter the result because the teams would have been the exact same if they didn't play the game. 3-loss Bama. I know they got the win at Georgia. 3-loss Bama is a 9 seed. A 9 seed in this. And Georgia is the 3 regardless by nature of winning the SEC championship game. The game did not need to be played, and the seeding wouldn't have been affected whatsoever. That's a joke. Everything you said about Miami, Notre Dame. It's also, you do this to yourselves when you want to have a weekly TV show, when you feel like you have to do this every single week, just for the 6 weeks leading up to the final reveal. And by nature of doing this and by changing this is not the first time this happened. I remember what was when TCU got screwed in the 14 playoff, going back more than a decade ago. They have a habit of doing this. It's all completely just a total joke. I mean, it really is just a total joke. And if you're going to complain, not that everyone has, but some people are lamenting the fact that you have 2 group of 5 teams in a 12-team playoff. Guess what? Blame the commissioners. They're the ones who did this, and they made the rules. You cannot invoke this and not kill the ACC. It is not JMU's fault or Tulane's fault that the ACC sucked. And by the way, Duke on Saturday, for the first time ever, saw its football team and its men's basketball program win against top 20 opponents on the same day. Had never happened. And so Duke winning the championship in the ACC title game boots the ACC out of it. That's why you have 2 group of 5 teams. You agreed to the structure. So I don't, if you're going to bring in the fact that it's not like, well, these spots should have or could have gone to the likes of Notre Dame and Vandy or Texas. This was the agreement that the commissioners put into place. It's the ACC's problem. The ACC's fault, man. It's amazing that they're this bad at a bracket that only has 12 teams. It really is. Like it's really hard to mess up the process to this level. And I'm mildly fired up because I find it entertaining. And as I said earlier this week, it actually is a net positive for college football, for the attention economy. The fact that you had Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame being the 3 schools fighting for 2 spots. You really could not ask for a better cauldron of 3 brands to be fighting and to get the most reaction, controversy possible. And then my last thing on this is, given that college football has a low game inventory, like the amount of data, it's not college basketball. You don't have 30+ games going into Selection Sunday. They really should be selecting the field once everyone has an even 12 number of game results in. And then you say, here are the teams that are going to be in. Here are the contingencies if these conference championship winners get in, how they would slot into the bracket. Okay. And then you have a second selection show. You really want to monetize this? Don't do any of them until the Tuesday after the regular season ends. You do the one where everyone's in. Okay, we know these teams are going to be in. We don't know where they're going to be seated. We know they're going to be in because we're evaluating everyone evenly. And then when you play the conference championship games, you get that additional data. Then you can determine where you seed and where you select everyone. But they don't want to do that. They want to imbalance everything and judge an Alabama team that now has 3 losses but doesn't get dinged whatsoever, despite the fact that every other team that lost in a conference championship game scenario went down in the CFP's rankings. Bama was the one exception. It really is incredible that they're this inept at it. And I do wonder, this really is my last thing and then I'm done. I talked to Brett Yormark in Vegas because he was there for the Big 12 thing with Players Era. And we were talking about how the deadline for the college football playoff format had been pushed from December 1 to January 23rd. And he has since said this publicly as well, but we were in effect on the record when we talked. He said, I don't think the deadline, we're pushing it down, but I don't think this is going to matter. I think we're going to have a 12-team playoff again for the 2026 college football season. I can't help but wonder, given everything that's tied to this, Notre Dame said, screw it, we're not even going to play in a bowl game now. I do wonder if the noise level around this event will lead college football conference commissioners to actually accelerate that. And if we don't have a 14 or 16 team arrangement in 26, I don't know if we will or we won't, but I think the temperature on that is different now than say 48 hours ago. That's all I got for you.
You mentioned, if you really want to monetize it, I think that's part of their problem. They are monetizing it. That's why they have the weekly television show.
That's exactly correct. But if you want to monetize it with actual credibility around it, that's what you should do, in my opinion, but whatever.
They are trying to get every penny out of it, which I work for a television network. I'm not going to start blaming television networks for trying to make money. That would seem hypocritical from me. But I think them trying to monetize it in the way that they have, leading to weekly television shows, it did get them put into a bad spot. If you didn't have a show last Tuesday or the Tuesday before, and you just popped up this morning and here's our bracket, there's really not a whole lot to argue about. But because of the television show and then them presumably realizing we've made a mistake with Miami, Notre Dame, and we've got to fix it, it led to all of the criticisms that you're getting today. To your point, and then we'll get out of here, it is hilarious to me that they created this thing. I mean, they fly people into resorts to sit around and
Public actually knew how much money went into that.
And they don't know what they're doing. It's insane. It reminds me of you ever see the clip of Michelle Obama? And she's like, your whole life, you just think these are the most important people in the world and they all must be brilliant. And she's like, then every once in a while, you get to some of us, you get to a point where, I'm paraphrasing here, but she's like, you get to these tables and you're with these people. And the first thing you realize is they're not as smart as you thought. And that's what this is. You got all the smartest people in college athletics, and they developed a playoff system that they have to go back and change annually, and they'll do it again next year. Remember, it used to be, it's the 4 highest rated conference champions have to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the bracket. And
Tulane would have had to buy if they didn't change it, by the way.
And we did that last year, and they were like, well, this is stupid. And it's like, you guys, why didn't you envision this might happen? So then they're like, okay, we got to get rid of that. And that's how you get Ohio State being the 2 seed now, even though it doesn't win a conference championship. All right, so they fixed that, but now they've got a group of 5 problem that they're going to have to address.
Well, they have an ACC problem.
Yes.
Again, it is not JMU or Tulane's fault that the ACC sucks.
I know, but what you're already hearing is if you're only going to have 12 teams, 2 of them shouldn't be coming from outside of the traditional power structure. You're already hearing that.
Of course. Yeah, because that's the way college football has been minded for a long time. And I get that angle of it, but you know what? I'll celebrate the fact that we got these 2, and it's going to be a tall task, but man, it would be so awesome if one of those 2 managed to actually win a college football playoff game. It would be incredible. It's a long shot, but It's not impossible.
It's not impossible. And that part of it doesn't bother me as much because it shows you if people care about the integrity of the regular season, because that's something you always hear about anytime a playoff expands. It's going to mess up this shows you that in this given year, obviously there's an advantage to being 1, 2, 3, and 4. You get the buys, but there was also an advantage to being 5 or 6 because you get to play a group of 5 as opposed to, an Alabama or one of those big brands. So it makes it more important to try to finish in the top 6. In most years, I know it's supposed to be the top 5, but it enhances the regular season, I think, on some level. So that part of it doesn't bother me as much, but it is funny to me. They spent years trying to develop a system, and the system they've developed is so clearly filled with flaws that they weren't whatever enough to identify in advance. Maybe that's the nicest way to say it.
And then we'll love the games once they kick off. But I
can't wait for the games.
Nice bonus and entertainment on a Sunday filled with a ton of sports. GP, it's been a fun show. I'm sorry we went long. I promise to our audience, and maybe you want it, but 90-minute Sunday shows are not going to be a thing. Common. Every so often maybe, but there was just so much to get to. Appreciate everyone that stuck around. Josh messaged us. This is one of our better Sunday live audiences I think we've ever had outside the month of March. So we appreciate everyone being invested in the first Sunday of December.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe. Anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, there's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.